should the Backstreet Kids be a cartoon? Maybe. Hi everybody, it's me, your old pal Ashley here to put words in order to accurately convey my feelings on the Backstreet Kids. In particularity if these should or should not have their own cartoon. These should. One thing though I think we can all agreeably agree on is that Dennis the Menace has had enough cartoons. They were nice, but we have seen him. We need something new, something exciting, something a little Bash Street. And this is how I would pitch it. The show is like Dennis, but there are 10 of him. And now, here is the twist, and there is a twist. We give them different personalities. Huh? Now that would be groundbreaking. You have 75 years of stories you could adapt. These little gurriers have been around since the before times. The 50s. So that brings me to a time known only as today, where I'm going to look at what I think is the best Backstreet Kids comic that could be adapted to be a cartoon pilot. And trust me, I had a lot to go through. The Backstreet Kids have been around a long time and have gone through a lot of changes, from the title and format to the number of students. It's mostly known for its 10 mainstays, however. These characters all have the same bold child characteristics, with usually an unimportant wrinkle added. There is Danny, whose personality is leader. Toots, who is dynamically known as the girl one. Sydney, Toots' younger twin brother, and his main personality is nobody cares about him. Plug is the handsome one, and his two longest running gags being mirrors cracking at his beauty and people inexplicably thinking he is ugly. We also have Fatty, who is fat, and Spotty, who has spots. Simple and quick to grasp. These two get their little names changed later on, but for this video we're keeping it old school. There is also Wilfred, who likes to wear a green jumper and hide his chin. Smithy, who, well, I can't really say his personality in this civilized day and age, so let's just describe him as a cross between Ed from Ed, Edd and Eddy and Ralph Wiggum. There is also the elusive Cupert, who is the teacher's pet and even looks just like him. Methinks some after school tutoring was going on at the Cupert house. Anyways, Cubert only seems to turn up on a semi-regular basis. Maybe Cubert goes to some private lessons as much as he can. Finally, we have the funniest character in the whole strip, Herbert, and his personality is being blind. Tell me, is there anything funnier than a blind person not knowing where they are? I don't think so. There we are, all the Backstreet Kids. All of them. You don't need no more. As you can probably imagine, these deeply complex characters with deep motivations have a wealth of classic stories and lore. There was the time they stole the money from their parents for school photo day, and when caught they all got bad baitings. Also, one time they were alien robots from another world. Well, I guess it wasn't technically them, but I'm counting it. You don't have a weird CGI plug and ignore it. The Beano video also had a fun adventure of them trying to fix Plug's ugly face. That came right from the comics. Apparently, I don't know, there are a lot of comics. Another favorite was when Toots pretended to be a witch to scare the teacher, but he found out and caned all of them. Haha, good stuff. I guess Dennis wasn't the only regular victim of child abuse, and thank goodness for that. There was also the time they heard the funniest joke in the world, but ran out of panels before being able to tell us the readers. Oh, disappointing. These Bash Street rascals were always a bit of alright if you ask old Ashley, but like most weekly gag strips, never really had too many complex stories. It was always a one-off comic gag. You would get occasional longer or multi-comic stories in the weekly Beano, most recently for their latest anniversary where they tried to find the funniest joke or something. I don't know, I wasn't really paying much attention. The best part of that run was when they went to Dandytown and just hated everything about the dandy. I mean, look at these faces. They just cannot sanction the dandy's buffoonery. Looks like some things never change. You would get meteor stories in the spin-offs like the Beano Library. I have a fun one here titled The Backstreet Kids in Higher Education, which was a bit of alright, I guess. They would also have their own fun-sized Beano adventures and some of the better Beano Superstar comics. I also have to mention their own special summer specials that helped highlight individual characters more. These summer specials were good because with a cast this big it gave you a bit of variety to play with. This also helped them when they would have their own annuals as well. That's not all though folks, as they had their adventures in random Beano educational books where they would team up with this robot science teacher weirdo. Now that's edutainment. So yeah, a lot of stories to draw from, and they are all good, but the characters themselves aren't really, you know, characters. They are tropes, and by tropes I mean one trope with maybe a gimmick, if you are lucky. There's misbehaving boy, misbehaving ugly boy, misbehaving boy who is a girl, my goodness, misbehaving blind boy, and the most interesting of all was the not misbehaving boy, and he barely appeared. This isn't a bad thing on a whole, as it gives writers liberty to mold them into any situation. Also, these very narrow traits have led to some good stuff, like the time they redesigned them all to be healthier and more PC as a joke. There is one writer artist though who really showed the potential of these plucky kids. Mike Mother Effin Pearse. Mike Pearse took these characters and made them, well, characters. Except Herbert. Misbehaving blind boy was too funny, and you do not fix what is not broken. He did give the other characters some much needed charisma, most notably Spotty, who in the hands of Mike Pearse became one of my favorite characters. He became more aggressive, sarcastic, fed up with everyone's nonsense, and even outright violent. I went to school with kids like Spotty. I'm not being tricked, his name is Spotty. Anyways, he wasn't afraid to throw slaps around either. Mike Pearse wasn't the only one though doing these new, more character-driven stories. Kev F. Sutherland also did some great work, particularly with Qbert in a story where babyface Finlayson was the antagonist and frankly, a bit of a prick. But going back to Mike, he would really flesh out characters, particularly in the spin-off strip Bash Street Kids Singled Out, where focus will be put on individual characters. If you have the time, check out as many of these as you can. It's really some of the best Beano stuff. Here's a quick montage. Well, that's enough of that. Anyways, Mikey really over-delivered on his stories. If you were to make that Bash Street Kids cartoon, his stuff is what I would focus on. Some of his standout stories include the time they went on a treasure hunt to London, the Nativity Play, and Nightmare on Bash Street, and of course the greatest Beano comic story of all time, when they took on the Beano All-Stars in a football match, later renamed It's a Funny Old Game. For this hypothetical cartoon, however, I think the pilot should focus mostly on the kids and the teacher to introduce them in a fun way to an audience. But did Mikey Boy and the Beano ever make a comic that could accomplish this and work as a blueprint for a series? Yes. Yes, they did. Today we will look at the Bash Street Kids in Choose Your Lesson, a funny comic that's not too long and it focuses solely on the Bash Street Kids. Before we get into the content, let's take a moment to stand and stare at this beautiful art. Nice. The level of detail is in that perfect spot. It isn't Tom Patterson crazy inventive, but it does have its cute little moments, like here where we see a mouse flying on a paper airplane. Sometimes it's also fun to try and find where Mike snuck his name in. Aha! Here it is! Found it! Even his less detailed panels are colored so well you can forgive the lack of detail. Every character is so expressive and I love how he keeps personalities consistent, like here where Smithy has no idea why everyone is screaming, or Herbert just being hilarious and wondering what is going on and always facing the wrong direction. The Bash Street Kids are perpetually in a 1950s British school setting, and that's a fun joke, but the way Mike draws the characters maintains that aesthetic but also helps keep it modern. If you were to make an animated series, I would aim for his art style. It would keep the series in this timeless scenario but still be able to incorporate modern technology. Similar how to Batman, the animated series was set in the 30s or 40s but also somehow the future. It keeps it evergreen. Mike's Bash Street strips would work today even with its mortar hats and children wearing ties and bows. Maybe the bad beatings wouldn't work, but you know what, I say try those anyways. Let's see, maybe you can get away with it. Let's get into the story though. We begin with a big panel with screaming. Now, you were probably wondering where this screaming is coming from, but not me, no. So sorry. My eye is immediately drawn to this red book. At first I thought it said Starters for Beginners, which made me say, okay. Funny, I think, but then I looked closer and I thought it said Satire for Beginners. You know, that weird little Greek ghost devil man thing. Okay, so how to be a strange demon looking Greek creature. That's cool, weird, but alright. But finally I looked extra close and I realized that it actually said Sartre. For Beginners, as in Jean-Paul Sartre, the French philosopher and playwright known for his radical concepts that authenticity and individuality have to be earned, not learned. This no doubt works as a metatextual metaphor not only for the Bass Street Kids trying to maintain their individualities against a 50s styles British school system known for crushing the individual, but also concurrently it works as a fourth wall breaking metaphor to the author himself, Mike Pearse, trying to give each member of the cast their own sense of self and identity while maintaining the authenticity of the comic, which at this stage was approaching its 50th year. Ha! And who says the Beano is just for kids? Me, I say that. But nothing wrong with throwing in a little French philosophy is what I say. Anyway, the screaming turns out to be Spotty, throwing a fit over how boring the lesson is. These first 2 pages are great examples of the personalities added to the characters by Big Boy Mikey. Spotty is so much fun here, overreacting so hard to immediately returning to being his sardonic self. The other kids' reactions are also fun, particularly during his second scream when they all react much bigger. All except for Sydney, that is, who is using playing cards. For some reason. Literally the most interesting thing he has ever done. Teacher almost steals the show from Spotty, however, as we see him react first angrily to being very hurt when hearing his lesson is boring. I'm a teacher myself, and let me tell you, nothing hurts me more than when I hear my lesson is boring every day. I mean, I'm doing my best. Anyways, the other kids at first seem to be reassuring their teacher, only to then compare it unfavorably to paint drying. Hey, look at Herbert happily looking the wrong direction. So cute. I could read a whole comic of him just looking the wrong way at different things. Turning over the page, Danny continues to give more examples of boring things that are more exciting than the teacher's lesson, who responds with the classic line, "Alright, I get the idea." He informs the children that life can't be all fun and games, and when he attempts to go back to the textbook, we get all of them screaming. Except for Smithy, of course, who has no idea what is going on or probably even where he is. Teacher, trying to be more dynamic, tells all the students, okay, write down a lesson they would like to have on a piece of paper and he will use some of them for tomorrow's lesson. Now that's going above and beyond. Teacher tells him to use their imagination and Spotty happily writes his idea thinking this could be a bit of fun. But the sly teacher reveals to us that he has a feeling that he might be having the most fun of all. Oh, matron. Behind his ominous smile, we also see Wilfred hold up a "Hello Mom" sign. That's also fun. Good for you, Wilfred. You're part of the story. A perfect setup. We got a lot of characterization and character motivation and know where the plot is going, and I am excited to see how it all plays out. While not every character gets a moment to talk, we do learn a lot about Spotty and we see Danny is the leader. We also get little details on others, such as Smithy's smiffiness, Herbert's silly blindness, Toots and Sydney get a few good moments. For example, in this panel for instance, we see Toots annoyed by her younger twin Sydney's enthusiasm. Plug doesn't seem to get much yet, but we do see he is devilishly handsome. And of course, we see Fatty always chewing on candy canes, chips, or drinking soda. On the next page, as we enter Act 2, we get a cameo of Minnie and Dennis, shocked to see the Bass Street Kids worried they might be late for school, further establishing their characters. The teacher is looking a little smug as the kids eagerly arrive. He won't tell them whose idea he picked first, only that it's in the gym and that they need to get changed. Some cute details here that I noticed was Toots with an annoyed expression hanging onto Herbert to help him figure out where he is going. So far that seems to be Toots' thing. She seems to just be annoyed at all these stupid boys. As soon as they get to the gym, the teacher slams the door shut behind them and they are trapped inside with a bull. This turns out to be Sydney's idea. Honestly, I can't ever remember reading a Bash Street comic where Sydney actually mattered this much. It's strange to see him be, well, you know, a character. Danny screams at everyone to run, but Spotty refuses, saying that Bash Street kids don't run from anything. He is then promptly gored into a basketball net. That'll teach the little Spotty dickhead. Everyone else smartly runs away, except for Herbert, of course, who has literally no idea what is going on, because, you know, he's blind. Also, we have Sydney, who for some reason has an insane sense of cockiness, thinking he can handle that bull. I mean, how hard could it be? Just prancing around going ole, ole. Well, spoilers, he couldn't handle the bull. Ole! We turn over once again to the next page with the bull chasing the remaining kids, except again for Herbert. This kid, what even is the point of his glasses? Danny tells everyone to climb up the parallel bars. Fatty of course is the slowest, but a horn to the ass gets him moving up to the top, where unfortunately for him and the other kids, his weight is just a little bit too much and he knocks them and the bears down onto the bull. Technically saving the day, so hooray! Teacher comes in asking if they are having fun and informs them they will take the school bus to their next lesson. We see Wilfred behind him again, looking up at some of the kids who got stuck on the high window. His character seems to be the shy wallflower, just silently observing everybody and noticing strange things, and a little bit more later on some strange things he notices. The teacher lets them know on the bus that it is Fatty's idea next, and they all get excited when they see they are going on a tour of Billy Plonka's chocolate factory for a chocolate tasting lesson. I got a big laugh out of this line. Great idea, fat boy. Very South Park, but that's how kids talk to each other when parents aren't listening. I don't know if you could put a line like that in a modern Beano, but I wish you could. The factory is a very budget version of Willy Wonka's factory. All the candy is tied to trees, but one thing this factory seems to have that Willy Wonka's didn't was sentient jelly baby men. So that's something. Wilfred even silently finds some nappies for jelly babies, so it raises so many questions. But we don't have too much time to really think too deeply about it. All seems to be going well with Toots being inquisitive and Fatty drooling. I really like this panel of Danny and Spotty stepping into Fatty's drool. In Mike Pearse's stories, these two really come across like best pals. It's some very nice characterization. Now it's time for some classic Willy Wonka comeuppances. First, Plug recklessly eats the dangerous extra sour lemon drop, causing his face to be sucked into itself and giving Sydney this banger line. God, Sydney has been a real revelation in this story. We turn over to see the room where the kids will be tasting chocolate and they bulldoze over Billy Plonka to get right into the action. They horse all the chocolate into themselves and teacher slyly wonders for how long they can keep doing that. An hour later he returns and everyone but Fatty is sick from eating too much chocolate. He tells him to get back onto the bus for the final lesson. Everyone is not feeling too good, it seems, as teacher speeds towards the destination unknown. Well, everyone but Fatty, of course, who is still eating. Danny asks whose lesson they are doing next and he goes white as a sheet when he learns it is his. Turns out that they are doing some derby stock car type racing. The last thing they need after eating all that chocolate. Even Fatty turns a little pale. The bus gets hit by two cars, but turning the page we see this great image of teacher smiling maniacally as he prepares to attack back, Mad Max style. We get a lot of fun gags of the students inside the car being squashed against the window, or a sick Plug sticking his head out the window and frightening car drivers into crashing. This impresses everyone but Spotty, who says on TV cop shows that cars always explode. Well, kaboom! The cars explode, blowing the school bus, tumbling towards the finish line and no doubt killing their drivers. Well, except for this fella. As they crawl out of the wreckage, teacher says that finishes their lesson, but it appears they have time for one more, but they beg him not to. They say they will do anything else. Anything! We turn over the page to see the kids back in the classroom, so happy to have returned to their desks. They all seem excited for maths as Spotty now even hugs his book. Teacher tells him to open page 42, and we get this cute panel of Danny helping Smithy, who clearly has a severe learning disability. Teacher begins to teach Pythagoras' theorem, and the kids seem to be attentive but have this odd look on their faces. When teacher asks Spotty a question, he snaps, and the story ends where it began, with us outside the building hearing Spotty screams. A fun, snappy conclusion to a really fun story. Easily one of the best Bash Street Kids stories that shows they really had potential for a full series. While some characters got a bit more focused than others, everyone got their moments, whether it was Wallflower Wilford breaking the fourth wall, Toots being annoyed at everyone around her, or Handsome Plug getting some good ugly gags. Teacher is also very fun, and it's nice to see him get to be a little bit wicked against these horrible little kids. The main standout to me though is Spotty. Mike took this character whose only real trait before was having spots and gave him so much more life. More so than even Danny and the others. I do wish Cupert had been included in this story. Him as a teacher's pet at the beginning and not wanting to be part of the kids' lesson in the main story could have been fun. Maybe they could have even had him pick the final activity, with the kids feeling better thinking it would be something boring and easy, only to discover that he picked the derby to try and impress them all. That would be a fun twist on things as well. So that's my pitch for a Bash Street Kids cartoon. This story is the perfect pilot to set the stage, and then you have dozens of other long-form stories to adapt not only from weekly comics but from annuals, Beano Max's Superstar series and summer specials, as well as all of Mike Pearse's other great works, as well as the stories by Kevin F. Sutherland and Nigel Parkinson. You could format the show as one long episode, or perhaps break it into two shorter segments per episode with maybe a singled out Mike Pearse story as a buffer in between. Come on, Beano and Netflix, think of the potential. All these iconic characters deserve their time to shine. So, what about all of you out there in YouTube land? Do you think we need a Bash Street Kids cartoon? And how would you incorporate the newer characters if we did get one? Let me know down below, and don't forget to like, share, comment, hype, and most of all, have a great day. Can you do that? Can you have a great day for me? Haha, toodles!